The snowstorm raged across Valathra like an endless white sea. Gale-force winds whipped over jagged ice cliffs, carrying flakes that stung the skin like tiny needles. Few beings could survive for long in this frozen expanse, and those who did were either the native Valathrians or the most determined explorers from across the galaxy. Among the latter was Elias Ward, a human engineer sent to repair a critical communication array that kept Valathra connected to the galactic network. Elias had traveled to many alien worlds before, but Valathra was different. Its landscape was harsh and unforgiving. Its sky, even in daylight, was a swirling sheet of gray clouds. But Elias did not hesitate. He had a task, and he trusted his skills and his instincts. He trudged through the thick snow toward the Royal Communication Tower, a structure that shimmered faintly with light reflecting off its crystalline surface. It looked like a jagged shard of ice stretching into the sky. His boots crunched over frozen ridges, and every step reminded him that Valathra was a planet that did not forgive mistakes. Inside the tower, the Valathrians waited. Tall and slender, they moved with an elegance humans could not imitate. Their silver eyes reflected the faint light, and their skin seemed almost translucent. Elias had met other alien species before, but there was something uniquely serene about Valathrians. They radiated calm intelligence. Among the assembly was Princess Lysera, the youngest daughter of the High Regent. She was known for her wisdom and poise, and for her ability to read the intentions of others almost instinctively. Her long silver hair flowed behind her as she entered the main chamber, and for a moment, everything about the room seemed to still. Elias approached the delegation with polite respect. "Greetings," he said, bowing slightly. "I am Elias Ward. I am here to assist with the communication array repairs." The Valathrians inclined their heads, acknowledging his words. But then something extraordinary happened. As Lysera stepped closer, she froze. Her eyes widened, her silver skin paled almost imperceptibly, and the staff standing behind her stiffened in confusion. Guards glanced at one another. "Your Highness?" one of them asked, stepping forward. Lysera did not answer. She continued to stare at Elias as though seeing something impossible, a vision from the past that should not exist. Elias felt a chill, but it was not from the snow outside. "Is something wrong, Your Highness?" he asked cautiously. Lysera's voice was barely audible. I did not expect." Her words trailed off. She could not complete the sentence. Every person in the room waited, tense, but no one dared interrupt. Elias had never encountered such a reaction, not on any alien world. It's not even on the most dangerous planets. He bowed again, unsure what had caused her shock. "I am honored to meet you," he said quietly. Lysera blinked, so trying to focus on the present moment instead of a memory. She shook her head slowly, and her hands, delicate and pale, clenched slightly at her sides. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling faintly. It is you." The words startled Elias. "Me?" he asked, furrowing his brow. "I do not understand." She did not answer. The royal guards exchanged worried glances. Even the other Valathrians seemed unsettled. Normally composed, Lysera's reaction was alarming. After a moment of tense silence, Messenger stepped forward, holding a folded scroll sealed with deep blue wax. He bowed deeply and whispered, "For the visitor, sir." Elias took the scroll, breaking the seal. Inside was a note written in delicate script, in a language he could read, thanks to a universal translator. It said only, "Do not return to the tower tomorrow. There are things about you even you do not understand." Elias's heart skipped a beat. He was trained to solve mechanical problems, not to deal with mysterious warnings or royal intrigue. Yet, the words unsettled him. They hinted at something larger, something beyond his understanding. That night, Elias lay awake in his quarters, snowdrifts piling outside the thick walls. The wind howled like a living creature, rattling the reinforced windows. He kept turning over the note in his hands, examining the careful curves of the letters. Why would a princess react to him this way? And what could the note possibly mean? He decided he could not ignore the questions. Valathra held secrets, ancient and powerful. Perhaps the snow and ice were only part of the danger. There was something hidden in this world, something waiting for him to discover. The next morning, he returned to the Royal Archives, a massive building carved into a glacier that stretched miles beneath the surface. The walls glimmered faintly with ice crystals, and the air was crisp, almost sharp. Here, Valethra kept records of every event in its history, some dating back centuries. Elias had access as part of his assignment, but today he was searching for answers that had nothing to do with repairing a communication. Hours passed as he sifted through digital records and ancient holograms. He found references to a human name, buried in stories about the Great Icequake War, a war that had threatened to destroy Valethra entirely. The records described a human warrior who had appeared centuries ago, had saved the planet during the greatest storm the Valathrians had ever known. The man's name was Captain Arden Ward. Elias froze. Arden Ward. The name sounded familiar. Too familiar. His grandfather had told him stories about ancestors who explored the stars, long before humans officially joined the Galactic Alliance. Tales of bravery, strange worlds, and impossible events. Could this be the same family? Could he somehow be connected to this legend? A memory flickered unbidden, his grandfather's voice, speaking of how the stars sometimes remembered bloodlines, how courage and destiny could skip generations. Elias shook his head. These were just story tales meant to inspire children. And yet, standing here, with snowstorm winds howling outside, and Lasara's gaze still fresh in his mind, he felt an unexplainable connection. Later that day, Princess Lasara approached him in the archives. She was calm, but her eyes betrayed curiosity, anxiety, something else, something profound. "I owe you an explanation," she said softly. "I apologize for my reaction yesterday. It is complicated." Elias nodded, stepping closer. "I only wish to understand. Your reaction, it was not normal. Please, tell me." Lysera led him to the Hall of Echoes, a vaulted chamber deep beneath the main archives. The walls were made of crystalline material, capturing light in ways that made it feel like the room was alive. Within the hall, ancient memories were stored as holographic projections. She gestured for him to watch. As the projection came to life, Elias saw a scene that made him catch his breath. A human man, identical in every detail to him. Same eyes, same jawline. Same scar near the left temple, was leading a group of Valathrians through a massive snowstorm. Beside him, a younger Valathrian woman with silver eyes helped guide the survivors. Lysera spoke, her voice trembling. This was centuries ago. He saved Valothra during the Icequake War. And you are the spitting image of him. Your bloodline carries his essence. Elias stared at the hologram, his mind struggling to grasp the impossible. That can't be real. Humans do not live that long. She shook her head gently. It is not about living that long. Valothra's records do not lie. And when the planet is in peril, it calls to those connected by blood, by promise, and by fate. That is why you are here. Elias felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. His life as an engineer, his focus on machines and circuits, suddenly seemed small compared to what the records implied. He was not here merely to fix a communication array. Something older, something that spanned centuries, had drawn him to this frozen world. The room felt impossibly large, yet intimate. Light from the crystal walls refracted across the floor, illuminating his own reflection beside that of a past he never lived, but somehow recognized. The past, the present, and the future seemed to merge in that moment. Lysera placed a hand on the crystalline wall, her silver eyes meeting his. When he saved Valethra, he made a promise. A promise that he would return if the world needed him again. And now, the world needs him. Elias swallowed hard. "So, you mean me?" "Yes," she said softly. "The moment I saw you, I knew. You carry the same spirit. You are his echo, and his promise is unfinished." Outside, the wind continued to howl. The snowstorm seemed relentless. But inside, Elias felt the first spark of purpose he had ever known. He had come to Valothra for a simple mission. Now he realized he was part of a much larger story, a story that could change the fate of an entire planet. He looked at Lysera. She looked back at him. In her gaze, he saw not just curiosity or fear, but trust, hope, and the weight of a promise made long ago. The snowstorm outside could rage as much as it pleased. Inside, a human and an alien princess were standing at the crossroads of destiny, about to discover why the past had chosen to reach across centuries and why the future would depend on the one person no one expected, him. And with that thought, Elias knew the adventure of his life had only just begun. The wind outside Velathra's crystalline towers howled like an angry beast. But inside the royal archives, the air was calm, almost sacred. Elias could still feel the chill of the snowstorm on his face. But a new kind of cold had settled in his mind, a cold of wonder and disbelief. He had seen something impossible, a human, centuries ago, identical to himself, saving this very world. And the woman by his side, Princess Lysera, confirmed it. Lysera led Elias through a corridor that descended deep into the glacier. The walls glittered with crystals that hummed faintly, resonating with the memory-storing technology of the Velathrians. The Hall of Echoes shows only fragments of memory, she explained, her voice low. It cannot show the whole story, but it can point us in the right direction. Elias nodded, trying to steady his racing thoughts. And that meant the one who looks like me, he was? My ancestor. Lysera shook her head slowly. Perhaps, or perhaps something more. We Velathrians call it the echo of promise. When a person makes a promise so strong that it can shape the future, their essence sometimes returns, even through generations. You are the echo of that promise. Elias frowned. The words sounded poetic, almost mystical, but something in her eyes told him she believed it with her whole heart. So, I'm here for a reason beyond repairing the communication array? He asked cautiously. Yes, Lysera said, stepping closer. Something is happening to Velathra again. The ice storms are worsening, and the planet's core shows signs of instability. Your arrival is no coincidence. The planet called to you because only someone like you can save it. Elias swallowed hard. He had dealt with machines, circuits, and engineering problems, but a planetary crisis. That was beyond anything he had imagined. And yet, looking into Lysera's silver eyes, he felt a strange certainty. He was meant to be here. For days, Elias worked alongside the Velathrians, repairing the damaged communication array, all while trying to understand the strange connection he shared with the past. Each night, he returned to the Hall of Echoes, reviewing the projections of Captain Arden Ward, the human who looked exactly like him. He watched scenes of courage and leadership, of survival in the harshest conditions, and slowly, fragments of memory began to feel familiar. One evening, while studying the archives, Elias discovered a sealed chamber hidden behind the crystal walls. Its door was marked with ancient symbols that even the Velathrians rarely opened. Lysera accompanied him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. This chamber contains the oldest records of Velathra, she explained. Records of events that occurred long before even my ancestors were born. Few humans have ever seen what is inside. Elias felt his pulse quicken. Curiosity overrode caution. Then we need to see it, he said. Lysera nodded. Together, they entered the chamber. Inside, the walls shimmered with golden light, and the floor was etched with lines that seemed to glow faintly. In the center of the room stood a holographic projector, dormant but waiting. Lysera activated it with a touch, and the room filled with a soft hum. A scene appeared before them. A massive snowstorm raged across Velathra, and a group of Velathrians struggled to survive. Leading them was a human captain, Arden Ward. Every movement, every expression, was identical to Elias. The projection showed Arden coordinating the survivors, placing protective shields and guiding them to safety. Beside him stood a young Velathrian woman, her silver eyes reflecting determination and fear. Elias felt his knees weaken. He reached out to touch the hologram, almost expecting it to feel solid. It's me, he whispered. Lysera's voice was gentle but firm. Not exactly you, But your essence is the same. The promise he made bound him to this world. And that promise has called you here? Elias struggled to comprehend it. But how is this possible? I'm just a human from Earth. Humans don't live that long. We don't have echoes of promise. Lysera smiled faintly. Perhaps that is what makes you extraordinary. Your lineage carries the spark of courage that Velathra once depended on. And now, the planet is in danger again? It needs the same spark. Elias felt a weight settle on his shoulders. The realization was overwhelming. He had come for a technical mission, but now he understood that fate had chosen him for something much larger. The days that followed were a mixture of training, conservation, and discovery. Elias learned about Velathra's fragile core, a molten heart beneath the ice that provided the planet with energy and balance. If it became unstable, the ice caps would shatter. Snowstorms would intensify, and the surface could become uninhabitable. Lysera guided him through simulations of the core, showing how delicate the balance was. The stabilizers we built centuries ago are no longer sufficient, she said. Only someone who understands both human technology and Velathrian design can activate the central stabilizer. Elias listened carefully. The thought of combining human engineering with alien technology was daunting. But he had always faced challenges, and somehow he felt ready. One night, as the twin moons of Velathra hung low in the sky, Lysera and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the frozen city. The wind was calmer, but the cold was still sharp. "Do you ever wonder," Elias asked quietly, "why me? Why now?" Lysera looked at him, her eyes reflecting moonlight. "Because the past never truly ends. Captain Arden Ward made a promise to Velathra. And promises like that? They echo, they wait, they call." Elias turned to her. "So, you believe I'm that echo?" She nodded. "I have seen many things, Elias. But when you first entered the tower, I knew immediately. You are him, not him. You are the continuation of what he began. And Velathra will survive only if you embrace it." The next morning, a sudden alert sounded across the city. Ice sheets near the northern towers had begun to crack violently. Snowstorms intensified beyond normal levels. Velathrians ran through the streets, securing structures and helping citizens evacuate. The signs of planetary instability were no longer theoretical. They were happening now. Elias and Lysera rushed to the central command. Monitors displayed energy fluctuations deep within the planet's core. The stabilizers were failing, and the time to act was short. Lysera's hand rested on his arm. "The chamber beneath the glacier," she said. "It contains the original stabilizer. Only you can activate it." Elias's heart raced. He had studied it for days, but theory and reality were different. "How do I know I can do it?" he asked. "You already have," Lysera replied softly. "In ways you cannot yet understand, your presence here is part of the stabilizer's activation. The planet recognizes its guardian." Together, they descended into the glacier. The tunnels were narrow, carved by ancient Velathrians long ago, and filled with glittering ice crystals. The deeper they went, the warmer the walls became, sign of the molten core proximity. Finally, they reached a massive chamber, carved perfectly into the ice. In the center stood the stabilizer, a complex fusion of Velathrian crystal and human technology, humming faintly as if alive. Symbols on the walls glowed faintly, reacting to Elias's presence. He stepped forward, feeling a strange resonance. It was as if the machine recognized him. Memories not his own flickered in his mind, visions of a human captain, guiding Velathrians, activating the stabilizer, and calming the core centuries ago. Lysera's voice broke through the visions. "Trust yourself, Elias. Trust what you are. Trust the promise." Elias placed his hands on the controls. The machine pulsed, responding to his touch. He felt energy coursing through him, a connection between human and alien design. Light filled the chamber, reflections dancing on the icy walls. The stabilizer began to hum more loudly, and he felt a warmth spreading from the core itself. The ground trembled. The ice walls creaked. But Elias remained steady, guided by instinct, by memory, by something deeper than understanding. He was not just a human engineer. He was the echo of a promise made long ago. And now, he was fulfilling it. As the hum reached a steady rhythm, the tremors lessened. The energy stabilized. The snowstorms above slowed, the northern ice sheets quieted, and the city of Valothra breathed a collective sigh of relief. Lysera stepped close, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the stabilizer. "You did it," she whispered. Elias smiled faintly, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," he corrected. He realized that the planet, the princess, and himself had all worked together across centuries to reach this moment. For the first time, Elias understood why Princess Lysera had stopped cold the first day they met. It was not fear or shock, it was recognition. Recognition of a promise that had endured centuries, waiting for its fulfillment. As they ascended back to the city, the snowstorm had calmed. The sun, weak but steady, broke through the clouds, casting Valothra in warm light for the first time in decades. Citizens emerged from their homes, looking skyward, sensing a new beginning. Elias looked at Lysera, and she looked back at him. In that moment, he felt not only the weight of responsibility lifted, but also the spark of connection, a bond that spanned time, space, and destiny. He had come to repair a communication array. Instead, he had discovered a legacy, fulfilled a promise, and saved a planet. And the story was far from over. Because as he would soon learn, the final challenge was yet to come, one that would test not only his skill and courage, but the very bond between human and Valathrian, between past and present. The sun had risen over Valothra, casting warm golden light over the city and the glittering ice towers. The snowstorms had slowed, and the winds had softened, but Elias knew that the calm was fragile. Valothra's core, though stabilized for now, was still vulnerable. The previous activation of the stabilizer was only the beginning. Princess Lysera and Elias stood at the edge of the city, looking toward the northern ice fields where the planet's largest fractures had appeared. The ground there had begun to split, revealing rivers of molten energy beneath the frozen crust. Small tremors shook the city, reminding all who lived there that danger was never far away. Lysera's silver eyes reflected concern. "Elias, the stabilizer has helped, but it will not last unless we complete the final activation. The central heart spire contains the primary energy core, and only someone like you can operate it fully." Elias felt a mixture of fear and determination. He had faced the machine beneath the glacier and succeeded, but the heart spire was different. It was older, more powerful, and built not just with technology, but with the essence of the planet itself. "How do we reach it?" he asked. Lysera gestured toward the jagged ice cliffs in the north. "Through the glacier labyrinth. Few have survived the journey. The path is dangerous, and the storms there are unpredictable. But it will test your courage, just as the original Arden Ward faced his trials centuries ago." Elias nodded, steeling himself. "Then we go." Journey through the glacier labyrinth, they set out immediately, Lysera guiding the way with confidence born of centuries of training. The glacier labyrinth was a network of tunnels and ice canyons, shifting constantly under Valothra's unstable core. The walls glimmered like diamonds, but the path was treacherous. Hidden crevasses, sudden ice slides, and bursts of geothermal heat made every step a challenge. Elias moved carefully, using both his human instincts and the technical knowledge he had gained from studying the Valathrian stabilizers. Every step forward required trust, not just in himself, but in Lysera, and in the promise that had called him here. Hours passed. The labyrinth tested their endurance, as icy winds tore through tunnels and geysers of steam from beneath the ice scalded the air. At one point, they encountered a massive ice crevice that threatened to block their path completely. Lysera studied the crevice and turned to Elias. "We must cross. The heart spire awaits. Trust yourself." Elias scanned the ice carefully. Using a combination of alien Valathrian climbing tools and his own ingenuity, he fashioned a stable bridge of ice cables and supports. It was dangerous, but he had no other choice. Slowly and steadily, they crossed the gap. Moving closer to their destination, the labyrinth seemed endless, but at last they emerged into a massive cavern. The walls glowed with molten energy, and in the center rose the Heart Spire, a towering crystal structure pulsing with light and raw power. It was unlike anything Elias had ever seen, part machine, part living entity. The Heart Spire's heir stepped forward, her hand brushing the crystal surface. "This is it," she whispered. "The Heart Spire contains the core of Velathra itself. Its energy sustains the planet and maintains balance. But it has been unstable for too long. You must complete the activation, Elias." Elias approached cautiously. The Heart Spire seemed to recognize him, pulsing faintly as if aware of his presence. Memories flashed before his eyes. The original Arden Ward operating the machine centuries ago, guiding Velathrians, calming the planet, and making the promise that had now echoed across time. Lysara's voice cut through the visions. "Trust the promise, Elias. Trust what you are." Taking a deep breath, Elias placed his hands on the Heart Spire. Energy surged through him. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He felt a connection not just to the machine, but to the planet, to Velathra itself, and to the centuries-old promise that had called him here. Light pulsed around him, forming patterns that matched the glowing symbols on the walls. The Heart Spire began to hum, resonating with his very heartbeat. Elias realized that this was not a task of strength alone, but of harmony. The Heart Spire responded to intent, courage, and willpower. With Lysara guiding him, he synchronized his movements with the pulsing energy. Memories of the past flowed into him, and for a moment he felt himself as Arden Ward. Centuries ago, facing the same challenge, guided by hope and determination, the ground trembled violently. Ice walls cracked. Molten rivers churned beneath the cavern. But Elias remained focused. He aligned the energy conduits, channeling the stabilizer's power through the Heart Spire. Combining human ingenuity and Velathrian technology slowly, the pulsing light steadied. The tremors lessened. The molten energy flowed smoothly beneath the ice. A calm spread through the cavern as the Heart Spire reached full activation. Elia stepped back, exhausted but triumphant. The planet's core was stable. The northern ice fields would not collapse. Velathra was saved. The revelation as the Heart Spire glowed with steady energy. Lysara approached him. "You did it," she said softly. Elias shook his head, still catching his breath. "We did it," he corrected. "The planet. It recognized something in me. Something from the past." Lysara's eyes softened. "Yes. When I first saw you, I recognized it too. You are not just a visitor, Elias. You are the continuation of a promise made centuries ago, a promise that the planet itself remembered. That is why I stopped cold. That is why you were called here." Elias felt a sense of wonder. He had arrived as an engineer, a human from Earth, expecting only to repair a machine. Instead, he had become part of something larger than himself. A legacy, a promise, and a bond with a world he had never known before. Lysara reached out and took his hand. "The people of Velathra owe their survival to you and I. I owe you my trust." Elias looked at her, feeling a connection that transcended time and space. "Then we stand together," he said quietly. "Not just as human and Velathrian, but as partners in what comes next." Returned to the city, they left the cavern and returned to the city. The citizens of Velathra gathered, sensing the change in the planet. Snowstorms had calmed. Ice sheets were stable. The city breathed a collective sigh of relief. The royal council approached Lysara and Elias, kneeling in respect. "You have saved Velathra," one elder said. "The planet recognizes its guardian. You, human, are the returned protector." Elias felt humbled. He had never sought glory or recognition. He had only done what he could, guided by instinct, knowledge, and now a deeper connection across time. Lysara turned to him. "The promise is fulfilled," she said softly. "But it is not the end. Velathra will always need protectors. And now, you are part of its story." Elias smiled faintly. He had come to repair a communication array. Instead, he had discovered a legacy, fulfilled an ancient promise, and saved a world. The sun rose higher, scattering golden light across the frozen towers. Citizens began to emerge from their homes, witnessing a planet renewed. Elias looked at Lysera, and she looked back at him. No words were necessary. They both understood the depth of the bond forged through courage, destiny, and time. For centuries, the promise had waited. Now, it had been kept. And in that moment, Elias realized that perhaps the universe had a way of calling the right person to the right place. At the right time, as the day unfolded, Elias and Lysera stood side by side, watching Velathra awaken. The journey had been perilous, the challenges immense, but the result was clear. A planet saved, a promise honored, and a connection that would endure across time. For Elias, the adventure had begun as a mission of repair, but it had become a journey of discovery, courage, and destiny, a story that would live on not only in the archives of Elethra, but in the hearts of those who had witnessed it. And as he gazed at the horizon, Elias understood the truth. Some promises are too strong to fade, and some echoes are destined to return. The alien princess had stopped cold when she saw him. Now he understood why. He was the echo. He was the promise. And he was home.